Whereas like definitely the scenario interesting right now with like the second infiltration attempt to like Brunner's energy that was right now being like a failure, but like also along with like Joyce this time getting caught by Brunner and his team like on the like this might be something that Hopper might have totally expected to happen. Definitely one of the situations like Hopper is like a top like definitely Hopper might have totally expected that basically Brunner and his team after like Hopper's like initial first infiltration into like Brunner's energy laboratories like Runner and his team might have certainly tightened up that security and might have even increased like the number of CCTV cameras as well in like Runner like an Azira laboratory. So like Hopper might have totally expected this time as like Hopper was like infiltrating along with like Joyce like for like the second time like this time definitely Hopper might have totally expected the current scenario for like Hopper to totally get caught and basically to get caught, but like Copper might have been totally betting on like Copper after getting caught, like most likely maybe getting like interrogated, put in to like Brenner in a laboratory or like Brenner and his team will be like trying to like interrogate Copper would be what like Copper might have only expected as for this time, especially since like even after like the like Amazon like even Copper Brother and his team like leaving after like pop-up like initial inspiration like basically uh Brother and his team like basically leaving Hopper back into just like home like that Hopper might have seen that as like maybe like a warning from like Brother and such like Brother is definitely not the bravery. So like after doing like Hopper trying to infiltrate right now with for like the second time like Hopper might have been totally betting on like and the game of the great which were like Hopper would be also having that maybe having that confidence that it will be unlike in Benny's case, like Bernard might not just take like the life of Copper, like solely due to like Copper being like a sure it's definitely with the impression. So like maybe that might be like the confidence that Copper might have had like the second time by Copper because like infiltrate into Bernard's energy level say like Joey is definitely with the impression. So that like Copper might have totally been expecting Bernard and team to like capture Copper as well as Joyce straight away. And basically, at that point, Bernard still trying to like interrogate Hopper, or like yeah, Hopper. That would be along the lines of like a scenario that Hopper might have totally expected to have like so that Hopper's plan might have been Hopper might do that totally might have totally try to like infiltrate for like the second time the Bernard's energy laboratory while being totally fully prepared to basically escape out of like the interrogation room in like the middle of the night, like after Pranav and the team after Pranav will be leaving his lab, like at that point for like Hopper to like make his move and like escape from like the interrogation room and save Joyce and basically for them both to like that way make it all the way into like the portal room in the center for energy laboratory and that way for them to like through that gate for them to like basically make it to like the parallel. Like this would be like a Hopper's plan. It's definitely plan of practical plan. It's definitely my consideration. So like everything that will be like right now happening to like Joy and Hopper would be something that Hopper might have only expected to happen and might be not even prepared for to like to counter against that. It's definitely my consideration. It's like definitely not the Korean position right now with like Joyce and like the interrogation for man is really right now. Totally putting on like the absolute fake acts of like she's like genuinely concerned and worried for like the six children that went missing that very week. So like I was like right now what's Brenner would be trying to what the Brenner would be right now trying to attempt would be totally to like find out if like Joyce if like the 11 and the kids like might lose the sense of them are with Joyce or no. Like basically whether Joyce know of like where those three kids along with like 11 are. To find this out would be like uh, would be uh, would be like the sole reason for like Brenner right now putting on this like fake act. It's definitely my consideration because like from Brenner's point of view, Brenner right now would be totally might be totally thinking that basically since like since like among like the six children that went missing, like Nancy as well as Johnson as well had also gone missing. Like and the Brenner like since like Nancy is like the sister of like Mike, who like Brenner had clearly seen like being with like 11. So like since like Nancy is like Mike's sister as well as like along with like Nancy and the other person that had gone missing like Johnson, who is in fact like Joyce's son, like Especially because of this reason, like the possibility of like Joyce as well being part of like this whole the positive like Joyce as well being part of all this, and basically the positive like Joyce knowing like where they are, like where 11 and like the children are, and basically the positive like Joyce being keeping them hidden, like basically that possibility will be one thing that like not just Joyce but Copper as well, like basically possibly hiding them would be along the lines that runner will be usually having a suspicion of lack of such a possibility that like, and was like to find out if that's true, if runner suspicion is true or not, like it would be like such a reason for like runner right now that basically talking in such a manner to Joyce right now, that is like genuinely concerned for like the missing children that he and all that, like basically that particularly like what Pranav right now would be attempting would be like exactly through this dialogue like I'm Pranav without much delay at all, like basically taking out like the photo of like 11 and basically to show that photo to Joyce, and straight away like Pranav would be like trying to like see like Joyce's reaction when she sees 11's photo, and then like that way for Pranav to figure out if like Joyce is part of all this, Joyce and Hopper are part of all this or not, definitely. And if so, like that way through them for runners to like that way through like Joyce for runner to like interrogate Joyce uh, in a harsh manner, and that way to force her to like reveal as to like the hideout of like 11 and Mike Lucas and that way after like making Joyce reveal that like to take like Joyce as well as our life to take Joyce's life is definitely will be like runner's plan. It's definitely my total impression, and then to like catch up 11 along with like Michael and Dustin, and then to like take the life of like Michael and Dustin would be like the plan of Primer. So definitely my positive impression. And I'm definitely looking like Brenner might have already been Brenner and team might be like by now might be already fed up with the whole interrogation of that Hopper might have definitely ended up in a failure. And I'm definitely looking by now that poor Hopper might have taken a lot of serious injuries through like the interrogation, especially my brother and his team's interrogations, definitely not the great thing. Yet like Hopper might have kept the like this feel and might have definitely not revealed anything at all. So like then Pranav might have decided to like move on to Joyce to like that approach that Pranav right now would be like trying to like get the truth out of like Joyce, and I'm also bringing like Joyce totally falling for that trap. It's like the scenario that I'm also bringing, and like I'm also bringing like while Pranav I'm also bringing like exactly like right now with like Pranav putting on the fake act. I'm also bringing like Pranav right now maybe saying along the lines of like basically like showing the photo of quickly showing like the photo of 11 to Joyce, and kind of saying that like this girl, I'm particularly two positive, like either that like this girl is basically like the monster, that basically like the monster can shapeshift and turn into this girl. So like have you seen this girl anywhere, like really along such like Brana has enjoyed like one possible scenario that I was bringing. So like I'm considering like right then itself, like I'm considering like Joy to know everything, like basically totally losing it, like losing her temper, and basically Joy at that point will be like shouting at brother. It's like the scenario that I'm considering. And that like I'm considering like Joy's totally shouting at Pranav and telling Pranav that like telling Pranav to like prepare himself because like because she would definitely be bringing not only finding and saving her son as well as like Barbara, but like she will also ensure that she like brings Brenner and his like energy lab down and ensure that like Brenner and his entire team is brought to like justice and is like punished. And be along the lines like I'm the point like Joyce in an extremely angry and emotional manner will be shouting at him. Brenner is like the scenario that is looking, and that's the like during that time like Joyce totally having a moment. It's like the scenario that I'm looking, but like I'm still Brenner straight away like smiling at like Joyce at that point, like the scenario that I was and Brenner straight away leaving that interrogation room, and like straight away Brenner's like team members, like security team members, forces like basically showing up, and I was bringing them like totally hurting for Joyce was like the scenario that I'm delivering. So like the harsh interrogation beginning at that point, and basically like to trying to like force Joyce to like basically reveal like the hidden where reveal where like Mike Lucas, Dustin, and 11s are like hiding in. So like I'm just like still Joyce like keeping her lip field is like the scenario that I'm going to remember. And basically that way that as well I'm going to probably being a moment of like Joyce that they'll be in that moment how much like Joyce will be getting stuff like Joyce will be like singing of Will and basically thinking of that 11 like basically like that like basically 11 is that key like 11 is like a huge key element for them to like basically they will and basically also like by now like definitely Joyce will be also thinking of like Mike because and Joyce will be also thinking of like and by now like Joyce will be totally grateful towards like 11 as well for that making that contact with Phil and everything so basically, definitely, Joyce definitely thinking of all of them by getting her during the information and Joyce like determined in a determined manner like if the Joyce will be getting her like Joyce will be keeping her midfield like the scenario that I'm going to bring and definitely I'm going to bring even Hopper would be like even though Hopper is in like a different interrogations of like still even I'm going to bring Hopper would maybe possibly kind of like having a confidence that basically Hopper would have seen like the determination in like Joyce and out of that, like since Black Hopper, I think was like in a relationship with like Joyce and like the past, like definitely the recent past. I'm going to bring like Hopper would know Joyce well, the character of Joyce well. That like I'm going to bring like Hopper would be like maybe even confident that like Joyce won't be like revealing anything about like the hideout of like 11 and like the children. So that's leading to the impression. So like I'm going to bring like Joyce taking in all that history and basically still Joyce and keeping her lips sealed and basically the interrogation for that night like being a failure and basically Brenner being frustrated and Brenner like telling Joyce that like this is going to continue from this day from this moment on like this interrogation is going to continue until you will be like forced to like basically reveal like the hideout of that 11 and like the kid of like the scenario that I'm also something like Brenner and Andrea frustrated Brenner that way like leaving like his lab for that night is like the scenario that I'm also like so like I'm also going to spend in like the middle of the night like the for the interrogation room of like Joyce as well as like Hopper like I'm also would be like either empty or like there in both those rooms that there will be only a single security guard like standing guard so like I was yeah like the work interrogation room would be having CCTV would be CCTV monitoring as well. It's definitely more important. But like I was saying like Hopper and still remember the revelation that like Hopper might have only made the second inspiration into like Renner's laboratory along with Joyce while expecting such a scenario. So like I was saying like Hopper like totally like will be well prepared. So like I was like Hopper would have some sort of like a weapon and using the weaker different it is like possible like Hopper. So they taking that out and then the different like Hopper like managing factory himself and basically Hopper like quickly taking out like the guard and basically Hopper like quickly rushing in to like find Joyce and then considering that Hopper probably eventually finding Joyce and like iterating finding Joyce as a, like interrogation room and like Hopper like basically taking out that security guard as well and basically Hopper freeing Joyce and like the two of them like stay chased by like the remaining guards in like Campion's energy laboratory into like eventually them running all their way and definitely since like Hopper have been to like the room where like the gate is like Hopper like after like saving Joyce like Hopper like probably taking Joyce like to clear them both that running and Hopper leading like Joyce to that whole intro so into that like the home where like set gate to like the ParallelWorld written like Renaissance Energy laboratory and Hopper and Joyce that way like escaping to like the so that gate to like that passenger like second the scenario that I'm working on the program of the render. So it's like the claim of the reimbursement right now. That's of like focus interrogation right now is like focus revealing about like during the improvisation revealing about like the villain saying like Brian his pain of stuff. Like basically still up to bring like definitely what's like definitely those two people I'm supposed to bring like that are interrogated for like I'm supposed to bring them totally into the asking for up to like where James or like 11 and the kids are like basically that I'm definitely bringing it for totally not at all revealing that. Definitely no matter how much they would be cutting for like over would be totally entirely refusing to reveal that. That made scenario that I'm going to bring. Yet like at that point I was trying maybe for like runner to like show up, and basically Brenner on seeing that Hopper not revealing anything, like maybe I'm going to bring Brenner also using a possible strategy, villain kind of like strategy, and that would be like I'm going to bring like maybe Brenner looking Hopper in like the eye, and basically Brenner telling Hopper that like Sarah is alive. That basically Brenner was like the one that had kidnapped Sarah, and she's still alive. That basically Brenner using that in such a villainous manner, Brenner like totally saying a lie in such a manner to like basically to get Hopper to like reveal like the information about like where 11 is like it's like also like a possibility that I'm different. But like even that strategy as well ending up being a failure depending on different, and because like I'm different like Brenner telling Hopper at that point that basically he has kidnapped Sarah in like the past, and basically Sarah is still alive in like a hidden location, and basically Brenner also lying that to Hopper that basically that like the funeral like of Sarah was like actually also like the very same similar scenario as like the funeral of Will, where like even Sarah that body was like fake dummy body would be along the lines like I'm different like maybe Brenner trying to like attempt to like in a villainous manner to trick Hopper is like the scenario that I'm sorry. But like I'm definitely putting like Hopper, totally not falling for that. And like but like I'm just at that point like Hopper like remembering her daughter's his daughter Sarah and all that like his face with this like daughter Sarah and everything, and really Hopper like totally turning into like an extremely emotional and disturbed state of like the scenario that I'm looking for. Yet like I'm just like Hopper totally shouting back and Brenner and like telling Brenner that they really that Hopper that like feels like a sheriff that he has seen enough dead bodies to tell like the real from fake. It's like along the lines like I'm different like Hopper totally like making him like come back to like Hopper, and that way like Hopper like strategy totally failing, and basically like that way like and Hopper at that point like threatening Brenner that basically that he will bring Brenner down that basically he will ensure that Brenner and his like and will have the like destroyed, it's like shut down, and basically Brenner and that team is like brought to like justice. It's like the scenario that I'm talking about living. But like yet like I'm looking until like Brenner I'm looking definitely telling Hopper that like he has kidnapped Sarah, and I'm looking until that point like I'm looking like Hopper might have never expected such never thought of like such a possibility that like the possibility of like Brenner uh the possibility of like, his own daughters that possibly Brenner having to do anything with it. Like it's definitely my first impression. But like what might have happened to be like Brenner might have kidnapped Sarah, and basically Bernstein might have kidnapped Sarah, and due to like possibly Sarah liking science so much, like definitely it would be due to like Sarah possibly having like high IQ. So like high IQ would be like only an absolutely necessary factor for like the whole experiments of Brenner to be a success. So like Therese as well might have totally had like high IQ, but like the IQ of the Therese might have not been high enough for like for the experiment to be a success. So like the experiment on Therese might have been a failure. Yet like I'm specifically my perspective, like even so still through that experience, like Therese might have gained like the ability of user sight, which like Brenner and his team might be not about aware of its name with revision. So like then like think like 11's name is like 11 is called 11 by Brenner. Like I'm like Sarah might have been like the maybe in the eighth or seventh like the experiment. So like there might have been like previous 10 experiments that might of Brenner that might have ended up being a failure, and it might have been only like 11 like the 11th experiment, and that was like being like 11 being changed like it might have been like the 11th turn that experiment might have been the success definitely not the experiment. So like another thing like Sarah might have died due to her experiment of Brenner from Sarah being like a failure might have been what might have happened with the rendition. So like Sarah might have died in such a manner, and Sarah's dead body might have been left in like the fourth cinema code back then in like in like the past might have been what might have happened definitely might have been the rendition. So like my personal impressions are like even to the person like automated operating that like saw the Sarah's that might have been due to that the attack of some wild animal or like some wolf from like the or maybe from muscle forest. might have been like the cause of like Java. That would be what like Hopper would be like most likely revealing even to best of understanding the microservice unless and until like the point where like runner would be revealing that I'm like which is like the scenario that I'm also bringing lack of until then you feel like totally unaware of foreigner like involvement behind the that is like the new scenario that I'm talking. So like foreigner revealing that a scenario such a scenario to happen at that point like of being probably stop is like kind of insensitive for the scenario that I was doing. So like the film was very interesting right now. About like Hopper right now trying to make the team with like the interrogators like with like Brenner and Stein in exchange for them helping Hopper and Joyce out to find Bill like Hopper. Like basically like not exposing Brenner like at least this would be like most likely the perfect deal strategy that like Hopper might have came prepared for while Hopper along with like Joyce while Hopper right now the Joyce like separated to like run of energy level for like with learning continue level for everything. So like right now also find like Hopper strategy to like totally worked out. So like the scenario that I'm looking at. This is like Brenner's team had basically like Brenner had totally lost his like Shepard during the whole parallel world exploration, like since like runs have lost Shepard, like like all the other members of like runners team after like shepherds that like they might have totally seen. But Shepard might have died, like even though like they hadn't like seen shepherds that like since there were like bloodstains on like that device that is tied on to like Shepard and also like most likely Shepard might have died of like mycosore infection. So like definitely seeing the blood like I was wondering like for enough team members like he said I think one of them might be like totally raised to basically like explore like the parallel dimensions. Definitely my best friend was like so kind of on top of like on top of that 11 going missing like and the different like Bran might be also currently in like this dilemma where like might be like not having anyone uh to basically even in some team to basically do the exploration like battle world right now. It makes a difference. So like right now I'm also playing like the like proper strategy solely due to like situation of runner and the proper strategy totally working out and basically that way runner totally assigning Hopper as well as Joyce with the start to like basically explore still my good impressions were like eventually I'm definitely preparing that definitely exactly like how Will was able to like basically communicate to from like the parallel to like the phone at like Will's home like basically in such a manner like I'm the maybe Will like maybe thinking Hopper and others as to like how to communicate from literally once like Hopper and go to be like literally finding Will like I'm like at that point like this is more like the teaching them as like how to communicate from like the parallel to like the real world. So like scenario that I go with. So like that phones advanced phones which I'm developing like Rano will be giving Joyce as well as Hopper and telling them to like basically and I'm also going like them maybe even making the threat to like Hopper as well as Joyce that basically if they don't listen to like Brenner and basically they don't report exactly everything they see according to like Brenner's needs like if they don't report everything if Hopper and Joyce doesn't report everything they see in like the battle world so Brenner then like about the like Brenner threatening Hopper as well as Joyce that will then be cut off like the cable will be along the lines of the planner making that correct now. So like those are the planner totally think that like the Hopper as well as Joyce will be afraid of like such a situation. But like I'm like potentially as like Hopper as well as Joyce that way would be like entering into like the battle straight away and the like Hopper as well as Joyce like straight away cutting off like the line cables themselves and basically them totally leaving and exploring like the battle something for the it's like the scenario that I'm looking and that way like runners like attempt of like using Hopper as well as Joyce for his like experiment in such a manner like totally backfiring or for straight away. It's like the into scenario that I'm looking and I'm looking also for like the Brenner while Brenner will be extremely brilliant still I'm looking like Brenner not thinking of like the possibilities that basically especially since like the very I think like very day that basically Mike Lucas Dustin along with like Eleven had gone missing since like that very day just like basically Jonathan as well as like Nancy as well had gone missing like with like Nancy being like the sister of Mike as well as like Johnson being like the son of Joyce, like still like the possibility of the seriously high possibility of like Joyce as well as Hopper as well being part of that missing of the children and the possibility of Hopper as well as Joyce possibly Hopper totally providing hiding location for the children basically even while Brenner will be totally brilliant Brenner still not being able to see such a possibility and that also bring being the main factor in Brenner totally allowing and allowing Hopper's plan, agreeing to Hopper's plan and basically sending Hopper as well as uh, Joyce to the parallel world. It's definitely my total impression. So that way Brenner prioritizing Hopper and Joyce entering the parallel world and reporting what they see in the parallel world. Even Brenner even prioritizing even all that even more than finding element. And both of the things would be solely due to Brenner totally due to the reason is definitely one of the things. So definitely one of the understand right now with Nancy as well as Bronson setting up the ultimate trap for the monster. But in will I'm especially the movie precisely due to definitely one of the that the strategy of Nancy and Jonathan would be precisely that they might have somehow got hold of a whole container containing blood of wild animals, especially mammoth. So I was thinking once all the trap preparation in this home to be complete, at that point their plan and the preparing strategy would be to just spill all of that blood onto the floor and basically that way through the scent of blood to basically attract and draw the monster from Mustard Forest all the way to Will. So it's definitely one with Ravi. And this is something in the very beginning while Will was being chased by the monster. Basically Will had basically started running from Mustard Forest and all the way to and reached Will home from Mustard Forest. And but so Mustard Forest might not be that extremely far away from his home. It's also definitely one with the impression. So definitely this would be the strategic plan of Jonathan and Nancy's technical prevention and also bring the plans in the initially the plan working out but eventually the plan ending up in failure of the scenario that everything and so Nancy and Jonathan behind setting up this plan trap by setting up this trap that they were only expecting for to be able to fully eliminate and take the life of the monster still number different uh I'm personally remembering the monster only getting injured to only a certain extent, certainly not to a great extent. Definitely I'm considering since the battle world is also empty I'm considering monster will be extremely tough. So definitely remember the remission won't be able to be brought down easily at all. Definitely remember the remission. So the parallel world itself being totally dark and empty would be precisely because of not just this monster but I'm considering there would be great number of monsters uh in the parallel world and those are it's definitely not just the single monster definitely member trends and that was the reason for the entire area in the parallel world being having no lights at all and being dark and empty without any humans is definitely my personal impression. It wouldn't just be all due to just a single monster. There would be that monster and still remember the impression might have laid eggs by itself and basically might have a lot of other monsters might have been present and might have spread throughout the battle world. In the entire world, the battle world is definitely so the majority of the entire world, the battle world, the battle world monster might have been taken over by these monsters. Might have been what might have happened. Especially remember the impression. So the scenarios that I was on the thing for the monster with the scent of blood the monster coming all the way from and I'm bring right now it will be almost near to 8 o'clock. So when it will just 8 o'clock I'm going to bring only when I'm going to bring the monster totally showing up through one of the three portals in monster force and the monster being drawn by scent of blood. So all the way from Will's home and the monster showing up to Will's home and straight away after entering Will's home I'm going the monster falling for the traps one by one. It's the scenario that I'm making. And I'm going the monster catching fire and I'm going still the monster even after catching fire I'm going the monster will be so extremely tough that I'm going the monster is still keeping on going and the fire not affecting the monster seriously. to even reach that extent at all. Definitely, the scenario that I'm observing, that monster will that extremely tough. I'm observing, yet, yet that monster will be having like a specific weakness, and like figuring out that specific weakness would be like the only way to like bring down and take the life of like the monster, which like I'm observing that like all of the crew, like of like Mike Christian as well as like Nancy Johnson and all of them, and Joyce, like all of them would be only finding that out and figuring out that weakness, that only single weakness of that monster, only in like the distant future of the feeling of the generation. So like I'm like and that was like the monster seeming as like the monster is like invincible and won't be able to like go down at all. It's like the scenario that I was doing. So like right now it's like the scenario that I was doing for like once like the monster will be entering like the form of will like and the all trap setting off, and basically regardless like the monster not taking seriously being affected by all the trap to a great extent at all, not getting affected to like a serious extent at all, like the scenario that I'm looking. So like that way, the monster feeding down, going and explore, going through like the room, different like with home and like there's then like I'm looking Nancy as well as Johnson will be extremely going to dance off with seeing like the extreme toughness of the monster of that, and looking like that club that basically Johnson has created like so Johnson like with like almost all of the traps being set up, and it will be still like the amount of cheating on going like about different like finally like about different like Nancy, it will be like the monster will be about to make it towards like Nancy and Johnson. So like at that point I'm also like Nancy and Johnson feeling like there's like absolutely no other choice but to use that club that Johnson had built. So like I'm assuming Johnson using that plus to like attack like the monster, and also like Nancy as well using the weapon on the monster. Yet like I'm assuming like monsters and the monsters like body being so strange and stuff that I'm assuming like it will be so resistant to like all that. It's like the scenario that I'm assuming like, and precisely as like the monster will be about to take most likely Nancy's like when it would be at that area second when I'm assuming like by then like right now with like 11 having a reveal to like Michael doesn't understand about like Nancy and Jonathan having uh, about like them trying to like about like with like 11 right now revealing that the same demigorgon when like my about like where Nancy and Jonathan are like basically. So like I was saying like 11 totally bringing like even though 11 would be like so extremely afraid of like the monster, it's in fact so extremely afraid of like the monster. Still I'm bring like uh, 11 like mastering up like the courage, and 11 totally leading the way as like 11 would be taking my hip and into like would be 11 would be able to like using 11 power like 11 would be able to, like sense that basically currently like Johnson and Nancy are in like the form definitely on the range. So like I was bring definitely by the time 11 would be making it to like Bill's home, like I'm going like Bill's home might have even been certain version of Bill's home might have even been caught fire because of like a was. So like my three impressions are like by the time 11 and like Michael Jackson Dustin would be like making it to like Wilson at that point like they would be seeing like the interior of like Wilson like totally and probably being destroyed like kind of like a state. And about from like 11 like would give the sense that basically Nancy's and Baines up, and then Jonathan's Baines up to like 11 quickly making the 11 making the way to like the upper floor. So like another thing, the scenario will be that Nancy and Jonathan getting cornered in like the upper floor by the monster, and like the monster will be about to take Nancy's life, but like at that very last second, like 11 showing up to the rescue, and 11 using the superpower to basically stop like the monster. And basically at that point, like the monster probably seeing 11. So like at that point, like the monster like trying to force its way towards like 11, and 11 like keeping on using like 11 superpowers. And at that point, like for 11 will be once again have 11's like no sleep. So like I'm also like that's like the monster will be trying to force its way towards like trying to capture 11. Like at that point, like 11 bring out using more and more intense in an intense manner, like 11 using 11 superpower, and that no player as well getting figure. And at that point would be when like 11 would be like I'm going to splitting the member mention that like it will be most likely 11 that would be like instead of like the monster like it will be going to be like 11 that would be most likely getting caught in like the bear trap. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. Yet like I'm looking like 11 not getting fully caught in like the bear trap. right before like 11 would be actually stepping on like the bear trap, and like the bear trap would be about to fully close on 11th like and also like right before that like 11 totally noticing and basically quickly reacting and 11 quickly redirecting 11 super power from like the monster to like trying to like stop like the bear trap like the scenario that I'm putting, and at that point about to bring like the monster like at that point like quickly rushing towards like 11, and by the time like 11 will be quickly destroying like the bear trap, stopping the bear trap from fully closing, and 11 will be destroying like the bear trap, but like at that point itself like the monster will be charging towards like 11 and attacking 11 and like quickly like capturing 11 and basically dragging 11. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. And by then, like 11 would have used like so much of 11 super power that 11 would be like extreme exhausted. So like the monster quickly capturing 11 and dragging 11 and quickly creating like a portal. And at that point, when I'm doing like all of them, like seeing how like the monster creates like the portal. That's like the scenario that I was doing. And at that point, my Lucas the thing would be, and I'm going to like during this whole chaos, like I'm going to like and then was maybe it would be by next monster would have captured 11 at that point when I was maybe Lucas using his like ultimate slingshot weapon and like basically using it on the monster, but like it's not working at all. It's like definitely it's not even remotely everything like the monster is also like the scenario, but like I was with them all seeing the spread to like basically stop like the monster from taking away 11 and like they would be doing everything they can to like stop that from happening, but still I'm also doing like the monster straight away quickly creating like a portal in like the wall, and basically the monster dragging like 11 through that portal in like the wall. And by then like 11 will be like suddenly exhausted. Like 11 would have only used like so much of superpowers uh, at one go that basically at great frequency that like kind of thing, like especially with like 11 just recently having used like the her superpowers again like in like the whole and everything. Like so 11 will be like suddenly out of stamina and everything. So like I'm just like 11 will suddenly exhausted and won't be able to like free herself. So like the monster dragging 11 into like the portal into like the parasite. At that point, like Mike totally rushing after like 11 and bring like the battle world without even a remote hesitation. And straight away, like after Mike, straight away, like load up and Dustin will be straight away, running after like Mike and entering into like the portal. And at that point, like I was like Nancy as well as Johnson by then, who would have in the fight with like the monster, they would have like totally been seriously injured. So like still, Mike, still at that point, Johnson as well as Nancy after like my 3% of sin will be like entering through the portal like I'm also saying like Jonathan as well as Nancy like totally like Nancy would move around for Mike, so like Nancy and Jonathan like totally quickly rush into like entering into like the portal, and I was like most likely for is to be like most likely Jonathan that will be like the most injured, and like so Jonathan like the portal will be about to like fully close like right before like the portal will be fully closing, like Jonathan just barely making it in, and that way like all of them entering into like the portal through like the portal into like the fireworks like the scenario that I'm describing. And when this will be happening like I'm also doing like at the same time in a parallel scenario like I'm also doing by then Pranav will be like feeling he'll be convinced by Hopper's strategy, and basically Pranav to basically and then the friend like Pranav totally deciding to totally eventually come to the decision to like totally replace since like Shepherd is gone to totally use Joyce as well as Hopper to like basically do like that to make them to use them to like do like the ParallelWorld exploration. So like I'm going to do that like I'm going to like put enough fire tying up line cable onto like Hopper and Joyce and like basically printing them both through the gates and like Reynolds energy laboratory. So like especially while like Michael Christian and Nancy and Jonathan would be like entering through like the portal into like the parallel world, like in parallel, like Joyce as well as Hopper will be entering into like the parallel world as well. Like a parallel happening with like them so entering into like parallel world simultaneously during the same time as like the scenario that I'm supervised. So according to my consideration and version of the brain, like it took for it to be not the monster, but like for it to eventually ending up being like 11 that would be like eventually getting caught in like the bear trap. And still I'm also preparing like 11 to stop like and destroy like the bear trap before like the bear trap will be fully closing onto like 11's like still I'm also preparing even by the time like 11 would be destroying like the bear trap, like the bear trap would have closed enough to like create severe kind of like injury onto for 11 like there's like the injured scenario that I'm also preparing. I'm also preparing. And yet, like at that point, even though 11 would be like bleeding, like and also like still like the monster not like taking 11's life, but like the scenario that the monster still would be like only recognizing that it would be that very same monster that would have that basically recognizes 11 from like the dark white world. It's definitely one of the rainbow. So like I'm considering like that monster like totally like because like it would be like every time it sees 11 like it would be remembering it like past self. It would be definitely anything like the monster would be like that like want us to like communicate with 11 would be like that specific monster would definitely be like the parallel world version of like 11. So it might have been that eventually turned into like the monster due to like the parallel world version of like brand of like when going wrong. It's definitely not the same. So definitely the monster when it sees 11 will be seeing into like even though the monster won't be like concept enough like still the monster when it sees like 11 will be seeing it like formal full self what it looked like before it turned into like monster. So like especially because of this reason like I'm looking like the monster to not attack not try to like take the life of 11 at all. So like I'm looking like the monster would only be capturing and driving 11 through that through the prophet into like parallel like the scenario that I was playing. And to save 11 like Mike would be like rushing in and to save Mike like Nancy would be like rushing in to save like 11 like Mike would be like rushing into like the parallel especially in the scenario that I was playing and like yes, and like, definitely not the Korean person right now with like not right now asking for as to like where the girl is like where 11 is like and I'm going to bring like right now especially right now it's like for telling for another basically to like leave the boy alone like I'm going to bring like definitely the light that I'm definitely putting like Papa light and I'm going to bring like the light that Papa Ruby right now telling brother Ruby. So like my Korean person is for like the light that Papa I'm going to bring to self brother Ruby like that like that girl like Jane like 11 and basically bond us so much with like with the boys like my Lucas and husband that basically due to their bond of friendship like basically like 11 basically told them that like she's going to like save Will and it's not to like and she like while Hopper as well as Lloyd was not present there like basically 11 had basically like left created like the Hopper herself and left to like the parallel world by herself to save would be like along the light that I'm about to bring up right now would be telling runner and like Hopper would be like totally thinking along the lines that so like basically that way like basically that since like runner definitely sort of really want 11 to capture 11 and bring 11 back like basically that way through that light Hopper would be trying to like that way make runner like allow like and let Hopper as well as like George to like basically travel into like the parallel world through like the gate in like Brenner's laboratory with all the heck and that way for like Hopper as well as like George to like get even like all the help from Brenner's to like basically while going into like the parallel unknown parallel worlds to, and that way for like Hopper to be able to like take advantage of all that help of Brenner to be able to like not look for to especially look for and save Will as well as Barbara would be like Hopper's plan right now. It's definitely not the primary. So like I was looking straight away and I was looking like so first highlight I was looking like Hopper's style right now style but like I'm looking still like since like Brandon knows well as to like how extremely afraid like how extremely afraid like 11 is of like the monster in like the parallel world. I'm like like Brandon straight away initially not at all believing that and straight away like Banner telling Hopper to like stop like but still I'm also like Hopper somehow in a cunning manner like totally convincing Brenner tricking and convincing Brenner that basically like 11 had actually left to like the parallel world. It's like the scenario that I was doing and that way with like Brenner eventually getting tricked by Hopper and with like Brenner being convinced like I was Brenner himself deciding to like basically send Hopper as well as Joy into like the battle world. So and like Varana would be able to like get back in the like in the scenarios that I'm also trying because like luckily I'm also trying like after like Shepard might have stayed away with pretty much in that like in like Varana and that team like Shepard might have been like the only person that might have had like the courage to explore like the battle world. Is it just going to like and explore the gates and going to and explore like the battle world is definitely not very emergent. So like I'm sort of like Varana totally thinking that runner that way getting tricked and runner totally not only allowing like Hopper as well as like going through that case in like into like the ParallelWorld like whether instead of the laboratory, but like runner also helping them out with like all sorts of like advanced equipments which would be like totally helpful for like Joyce as well as like Hopper when they will be like entering like the ParallelWorld as like the scenarios that I'm going to bring in like the brain. Okay, so like definitely in the ambition right now, the Black Hopper right now is talking to like telling Joyce about like the Hopper's like experiment with like runner and basically telling Joyce that basically if she wants to build back then that the Brand lab has nothing to do with like like basically what that would be only a show like a fake like a bluff and like a photo show that like Hopper like only a fake bluff that like Hopper will be like only an absolute like that Hopper will be only like a show that properly only putting in front of like a living flag while from the street to like those like it just surrounded by like uh men like and also think that actually it would be like totally a fake act by Hopper, especially when to convince all of them is just give every impression. So definitely I'm also thinking like one like Hopper and Joyce will be like initially entering into like the parallel world. Okay, so like legal of the impression right now is that like Hopper plan right now would be like especially things like Hopper having thoughts for enough to like specifically to like to leave the boys alone. Like I'm looking for like specifically talking that like I'm looking for like definitely Hopper totally listening to like everything like Bernard and his team would be telling to like Hopper. So like definitely on the very interesting right now what Hopper's like current plan would be to like to basically to like listen to everything Bernard says and basically to like basically do exactly like Bernard says even within like after like entering into like the bad word choice and Hopper's plan would be the most likely while maintaining and ensuring like always ensuring like the protection of like Joe like for like Hopper and Joe's to like exactly the name of like searching for like uh searching for 11 like basically Brand might have told like what Runner might have told Hopper might have been to like simply Hopper might have like told Runner that basically 11 has went to like the bad word so like what 11 right now might have told during the order to like Hopper might have been to like basically you first find and bring back 11 and then you can like find Will might have been along the lines like Runner might have the order that Runner might have for the purpose definitely matters to everything. But like purpose plan would be like basically in the name of like prioritizing like finding trying like first find 11 like another thing like purpose plan would be to like especially look exactly from like what like Hopper will be and like into like the parable like for Hopper and those to like first head over to like Will's home in like the parallel and the first step is like just find to see if like Will is there. It's like the scenario that I'm Hopper and Hopper's plan would be to like essentially find Will and basically find and save Will and bring Will back to like the laboratory along with like Joy like to bring both of them to like like the laboratory and then for like Hopper to like totally make to tell to give that assurance to like Bernard that like Hopper like straight away returning back to like the backward and won't be returning back unless he finds like and brings back 11. It'll be along the lines that way to like totally trick and somehow manage to that assurance and to that way for Hopper to convince Brenner and that way like that way so that like Josh as well as Will would be able to like return back to their home and uh, that will be what Hopper is only planning. And then for like Hopper to like return back to like the parallel world and search for like the monster and then for like Hopper to basically draw like the monster and lure the monster into like basically through the open gate into like Furnace Energy Laboratory and so that like the monster will be creating all that chaos in like Furnace Energy Laboratory. So that like Hopper will only think like the monster itself will be like doing all the destruction of like Furnace Energy Laboratory so that during that chaos so that like during that chaos like Thanos would so that like during that chaos like Hawker will be able to like escape from like the energy laboratory Thanos. And then after escaping from Thanos energy laboratory and then for like Hawker to like basically actually make his true move and that would be to like precisely to bring Hawker to destroy like to totally bring like Runner and his like entire team of like to in front of justice and basically to ensure that they all get arrested and to arrest all of them and to like bring them to justice. And then while and then for like Hopper to like also take the life of like some monster. It would be like the plan of like Hopper. That really might this would be like the plan like in such a way to like in a convincing manner to like eventually trick Brenner and his team into like eventually like destroy Brenner and his team would be like the plan of Hopper. This is definitely my secondary impression. Oh yes, so like definitely no look very interesting right now. For like Brenner right now it's telling us like main team member of women that basically it's gone, isn't that what you wanted? Like definitely my secondary impression is that like Brenner is just only talking about 11 is definitely my secondary impression. So that like it's gone like I'm like Pran might be talking might talking about like the lie that like Potter might have told Brenda and trick Brenner the new of the thing. So like I'm looking at the lie that Potter might have told Brenner might have been that like that Hopper as well. Hopper might have told Brenner that like he too was like while uh, was searching for like Mike Lucas and Dustin. So like Hopper had found that at like Northwest Forest and they are like considering the like by the time Hopper had found them like basically like I remember different two properties of like the possible lies and like Hopper might have told the one lie would be like by the time like Hopper had found like the kids hiding at like Northwood Forest like basically the monster was like trying to attack them and basically there was like a fight between like 11 and like the monster and basically the monster has taken the life of like 11 and left back into like the battle but might have been that one possible lie that Hooker might have told. Or like the other possible lie might have been that like the monster had basically only or and defeated 11 and basically might have dragged 11 into like the parallel world and left into like the parallel world. Might have been like the other possible lie that like Hooker might have told. Like might have been ambition. So like definitely my birthday impressions I like that life of opera like I'm going to talk about that but now right now totally thinking that like straight away assuming that like definitely 11 so like since 11 was taken by like the monster like definitely 11 the monster would have definitely taken the life of 11 would be the lines that Prana would be all confidently assuming it's definitely my birthday impressions and but like 11 like 11 like relevance to Prana might have been only to the point of like relevance opening up like the gate to like the parallel world and definitely going to connection. After that, like I'm going to like through 11, like opening like the gate, like I'm going to the experiment might have been considered as like a purpose in like the 11th turn, but like the index such subject change like the experiment attempt usually becoming ending up being a subject might have been along the line that relevance change might have viewed it definitely not the provision. From that point on, like I'm looking like maybe Brandon might have had like absolutely no need for 11 is definitely not the parameters. Like I'm looking maybe like the weapon might not reach 11 and that's this weapon that basically as part of this experiment that trying to create like the ultimate weapon might not be 11 but like the ultimate weapon might be like some more stuff it's also like a positive that I'm looking for it. So and I'm looking so like the monster might be a whole lot extremely superiorly stronger and tougher than 11 definitely my pyramid so like the monster might actually be like the weapon maybe that like ultimate weapon that like was trying to achieve either that's only one a minor possibility that I'm looking like that possibility that I'm leaning more towards is basically that like maybe it might have been after like the monster end from like the portal which might have obviously get only unexpected definitely when the realization. So after like runner finding out about like the monster like like runner might have figured out that basically the monster would be like an even more like superiorly stronger weapon when compared to 11 might have been along the line that one might have felt. So like I'm thinking right now runner might not have any need for like 11 but like Runner would like the reasons that runner and stream are after 11 might lead to like exploitation like of 11 definitely my mother emerges then it might be like the monster that like is the would be seen right now seen as like the ultimate weapon for like runner. So definitely for his experience, definitely my mother emerges. So uh, so like my mother emerges that like this will be what like runner will be most likely referring to as like uh like main team member woman that basically that we wanted its own like when Pran said that like it might he might have been only referring to 11. So definitely my good friend because like Pranav might have like Pranav and his like team member like after like the gate opening of like a success like he might have only wanted like uh, Pranav to like and the thing like probably if it as soon as possible take the life of 11 is definitely what might have happened. It's definitely my versus the reimbursement, especially because of like them fearing like the possibility like repeating as for like the possibility like through 11 like basically like 11 have like even more than words that since like 11 have actual evidence through her superpowers through her telepathy and telekinesis power like since like 11 like basically the more 11 stays outside of like kind of the more 11 stays alive like the possibility of like the rest of the world like basically is 11 gaining attention and like the rest of the world that way like 11 leading like the rest of the world through gaining attention like 11 leading like the rest of the world in towards like Pranav and the laboratory and Pranav experiments like that possibility like Pranav like remember that woman might have seen as well as Pranav might have seen as like a hypothesis. So like I'm also thinking this might be the professor reason for like them wanting to chasing after like 11 so badly and that might have been solely to like eliminate 11 look at me might also the reimbursement. Okay, so like name of the reimbursement right now with like runner once again like bringing out such like tools of leaving like this lab this like tools army like of the difficult like I'm the different of right now like the reason would be potentially due to like the lies that Papa might have told runner which might have been that like easily right now 11 and like the kids like Mike Lucas and Nancy and Jonathan like all of them that like all of them are in like will be along the line that Hopper might have told Brenner. It's a real of friends and like Hopper might have might have been trying to like trick Brenner into thinking that basically Hopper just wants to like save just Hopper just wants to like save Will and Hopper wants to like the kids specifically the kids like Jonathan and like Nancy as well as like Michael Lucas and Dustin to like remain protected while with like Hopper again talking to referring to 11 as like your experiment saying that like about like 11 as like your experiment to runner like and like that as well would be like a fake act by Hopper into making him seem as a black Hopper is like okay with like Brenner taking away 11. That's definitely my book reimbursement. So like I'm just what the lie that Hopper might have told Brenner might have been that like basically Michael Clifton as well as Nancy and Jonathan are in that thing. So along with like 11. So like Hopper might have told Brenner that like you should only take 11 and basically you should leave like the boys alone might have been what Hopper might have meant to certainly at that point, especially my book reimbursement. So this would be might have been like from Hopper's point of view, this might have been like the trap set for Renner and his team, precisely because like Hopper, since like Hopper and Joyce like definitely since like from Hopper and Joyce's point of view, definitely Nancy Jonathan, while they had left Nancy Jonathan, Mike Lucas and Dustin and Dylan, that basically they were all at not at like with home, but like at a different location, and but different like this would be like a from Hopper's point of view, that this might have been like the trap set by Hopper for like Renner, so that like to get like Renner and just like use for presented like Renner's energy lab to get them away from like Renner's energy lab, so that like at that point like uh, very few like guards would be left for Renner's energy lab, so that like Renner by saying that like might have totally expected that like uh, definitely whether Renner believes that Hopper's lie or not, like Renner would be totally definitely like dealing with like a huge with like a huge force huge army to like actually build so much that point because might have definitely been one thing that like Hopper might have totally expected. So like that exactly happening and Hopper might have planned to like at that point like even if it's using force for like Hopper as well as Joyce to like make it towards like the room where like the gate is and like to move to like to enter into like the barrel might have been Hopper's plan. So like I'm remembering like right now with like Brenner team remaining team members in like the lab like totally assisting Hopper as well as like Joyce and basically giving them like the like right outfit, costume and everything, like not costume but like the right suit and everything to like counteract to protect and shield them from like the toxic atmosphere and everything. Like even out that like would be or like according to like Brenner's orders to definitely members kind of thing. So because like my remembers that like especially since like Brenner himself have had seen firsthand as to like how quickly like Shepard had most likely died like after like entering into like the battle world like especially Foreigner will be only expecting like Hopper as well as like Joyce to die in like the same manner to get attacked by like the monster and that end up dying in like the same manner as soon as they would be entering into like the battle world will be like what Brenner will be totally expecting. And this might be the reason for like as like Brenner's main team member woman like ask Brenner as to like what if they find the boy like Brenner even saying that that's not going to happen maybe because of Brenner because of her not having seen like Shepard that's definitely one of the brains while Brenner having definitely one of the brains. So that way like get from Brennan's point of view, Brenner will be totally thinking of like at that in like a single way, like basically all of like the people who Brenner would be believing in those of like the truth about like 11 like as well as 11 like all of them being eliminated in like one shot would be along the lines like Brenner would be right now seeing like the current situation as definitely one of the famous. But like right now, Brenner is like taking to bring out his like entire army and even Brenner and the laboratory they will be totally straight away leave and planning on heading over to like with home definitely one of the famous. And where like Brenner would be totally planning on basically if they find 11 as well as like Michael Cassandra from there for like run up to like basically uh they eliminate all of them will be like run up plan right now. It's definitely a for impression. So like I'm looking like right now the scenario that I'm looking is that definitely I'm considering like right now for like the scenario to be like definitely to like Jonathan and Nancy setting up the trap to like lure the monster and definitely putting like the scent of blood like I'm considering like definitely Nancy and Jonathan like from the plan like killing like the blood of some wild animal onto like the home exactly and basically that quickly attracting like the like drawing like the monster into like the form of the in like the scenario that I was doing. And that was just happening before like Trainer and team and like making it to like the form like the scenario that I was doing. So like at that point like the monster like entering into like the form of villain basically like the whole like fight monster for getting into like all that crap and basically still like the monsters are fighting and like the fight and everything happening and like then I'm looking like eventually specific to my preparation for like the monster like capturing 11 and basically like creating like the portal in little form and like living through that portal and like my kids and you know entering into that portal and like then Nancy entering and like especially the last person I'm sitting on to definitely will be like Johnson will be like the last person to like enter into like the portal. So like right up like the portal will be about to close would be when like Amazon like Runner and his team would be finally making it to like with so it's like scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm wondering probably like Runner as like Runner would be entering like with from like Runner stop that seeing like the home being like suddenly destroyed and then to define like what Runner would be seeing at that point by entering like the zone would be like the this like Jonathan quickly entering like the portal and basically the portal like totally almost fully closing with like Runner totally while entering like this home like Runner was actually being like Jonathan from like the other side of like the portal and like the portal quickly closing is like the scenario that I'm considering. And that way like at that point I'm considering like from not totally being maybe even confused of so like at that point I was considering like Brenner most likely come to maybe even thinking along the lines as a black pop up was like extremely naive that basically like Brenner totally think that like Pop might have totally trusted Brenner to like not to that totally leave the boys alone and basically of Brenner's only thing at that point that Boba was like so naive and basically what are the conclusions that Brenner would be coming to at that point, seeing like most likely by seeing like the Will's home like being thoroughly destroyed and on seeing like the portal closing with like Johnson's face on the other side of the world, like I'm like it's a conclusion that Brenner would be most likely come to give that like all the children like all the missing children, six of them might have been like right there in like Will's home hiding and so like Brian come to like the conclusion that basically like the kids might have like and they really try to like basically trap like the most of like I'm looking like at that point Brian's team not only seeing like kids on the person like seeing all the traps set up traps there as well. So like I'm looking maybe like Brian come to like a conclusion that like they might have tried to like lure in like the monster and might have tried to like basically that would take the life of like the monster, but like the monster might have only like taken one of them and might have left through like the conversation, created a portal in the format, might have left through the portal. So like they might have always like left through that portal to like save that 1,000 woman, but might have been what might have happened. Would be like along like sort of like a conclusion like that I'm sort of bring that run up to come down to definitely members of the like I'm thinking right straight away like runner even falling at sort of like lab as well. And I'm wondering like at this lab, like I'm wondering that the people there like basically the current team members there and like the lab that telling runner that basically and like after like them both like entering into the that basically the line cables were attached to that both Joyce as well as Hopper were like quickly cut off after that they had basically entered into like the parallel world would be along the lines numbers different like that person there would be like telling to like runner at that point that on was like the scenario that I was doing. So like at that point I was doing like runner totally or confidently thinking that feeling as fully or relaxed thinking that basically all of them that might have been able to like know of like 11 secrets as well as like 11 like all of them in one shot might be getting eliminated at the same time will be along the line of like uh, would be along the lines and whispering like Brenda would be like straight away assuming definitely in an awesome manner like the scenario that I was looking at as for like offer especially since like offer is like of like have as like an important position as like sheriff like to bring like in purpose case like I'm to bring like runner like maybe like not only in that purpose case but like, in all of that cases like I'm to bring runner getting too overconfident and maybe thinking of like basically creating exactly like in build that dummy body case like I'm to bring like the same strategy I'm to bring but maybe planning on attempting uh for like the that body of black and that way like runner trying to like use that space strategy and creating maybe like dead bodies of like dummy bodies of like of as well as like the six kids it's like as well as choices it's like anyway what was the scenario that I'm looking for the programmer together. So like the thing of the person right now with that sort of black on entering like a fan bird itself like straight away feeling of Sarah like I'm looking like maybe for like an individual what was scenario where like Hopper like and Joyce as they were searching for like will like a person like even before finding will like them eventually finding running into Sarah just like also like a popular that I'm looking and Hopper would be having that absolute ticket shock at that point. But like I'm something like the actual Sarah and the actual doctor of like daughter of like Hopper Sarah would have definitely died and like Pranav might have definitely been like the definitely my prevention and so like the Sarah that Hopper would be seeing in like the parallel world would be like the parallel world version of like Sarah. Definitely my prevention. So like she might have somehow miraculously survived for so long and might have been like even right now would be like hiding somewhere in like the parallel world. Definitely my prevention. So like that way Hopper in a way even though it's not just like actor or Sarah still like in a way like Hopper totally fake allowing Hopper to like eventually uh, able, making it possible for like Hopper to like in a way get back as not Sarah even though it would be like the parallel version of like Sarah it's like also like an invincible possible scenario that I'm right and that way like Hopper totally saving Sarah the parallel world version of Sarah and Hopper bringing the parallel world version of Sarah into like the real world and basically like that way like Hopper and Sarah living together like a father and daughter like it's like in like the real world it's like also like an individual person scenario that I'm bring. But like I'm bring maybe like that to like have consequence like maybe like someone from like the parallel world like staying and living in like the real world probably causing like a change in like the balance between like the real world and parallel world. That I'm going to bring some sort of like an individual consequence to happen between like the real world and the parallel world. Between like someone from like, the parallel world to like living in like the real world. There's also like an eventual possible scenario that I'm looking and that eventual complications like eventually coming back towards like proper and like might be understand all of them as like a huge consequence in like the instances that like also like an individual instances of possibility that I'm framework. Also like the name of the brain person right now as for like that's right now suspiciously all of a sudden like leaving like the hideout where like I might be as well as 11 like they definitely doesn't the reason would be definitely because of like Dustin definitely having like basically only having like a massive crush on like Nancy definitely having temperature so like I'm like Dustin would only right now maybe the new step with like Nancy is like and Dustin would be like totally wanting to like and seriously jealous towards like Jonathan as well. Dustin is just seriously jealous towards like Jonathan as well. The minimum of the emotion, so like Dustin will be like totally disturbed and wants to like would be like totally wanting to like really find out like what's like happening with Nancy and Jonathan right now. It's definitely one of the trend. So like specifically like Dustin right now would be like trying to like this for Nancy and Jonathan right now. It's definitely one of the emotion, even though 11 said like the about like Nancy and Jonathan have like the word like demigorgon like that basically Nancy and Jonathan are setting to like find or like capture or like this like the monster would be along the lines like basically Michael and Dustin might have felt that like 11 was trying to communicate to them by saying demigorgon, but still I'm considering like definitely Dustin definitely might have definitely not believed that like what 11 said is definitely one of the ranges. So like Dustin right now all of a sudden like subconsciously leaving movie it's solely going to like Dustin wants to find out like what's going on between like Nancy and Jonathan right now at that moment is definitely during that time is definitely my secondary emerge. So like this will be the sole reason for like Dustin heading out, but like I'm just like Dustin getting into like an even more trouble. Like I'm just running. So like basically my secondary emerge is swapping scenario that I'm just against swap like maybe for like Dustin totally assuming that basically right now Nancy and Johnson might actually be like this Bill and Johnson's home. So like I'm just like Dustin deciding to like go up to like with home and check out what's happening there. If like Nancy and Johnson are there, like, and if they are there, like, what is it exactly that they are doing, like, to find that out would be like, ambassador like scenario that ambassador like, and with that intent, like, ambassador like, Dustin straight away heading over to like Bill's home, but like even before reaching Bill's home, like, it's that right now already Nancy as well as Johnson according to their plan, like, ambassador like, since like, they, like, since like definitely right now with like percent of plus like ambassador definitely like the monster right now, like showing up towards like with Johnson's home. So like I'm looking like seriously as like the monster really come towards the Johnson's home. Like I'm looking like the monster first being like trusted. Even before like the monster will be entering like this one like everything like the monster seeing trusted and like the Dustin seeing like the monster and then he definitely the monster chasing after Dustin is like scenario that I'm looking and Dustin only running here and seeking shelter into trying to like hide in like against him with like the scenario that I'm going in that way like I'm also going like Nancy and Jonathan like and Nancy and Jonathan will be totally hiding and pushing towards like the front of where they will be like maybe expecting like that most of to like maybe even approach the road and front of or like I'm also like Nancy and Jonathan like keeping look out to the surrounding areas of like build some like scenario that I'm looking at from within like the house from in the new brain. So like same so often the saying as like the thing would be like entering into the home and basically Dustin running into the home and being saved up by like the monster at that point of like the scenario that I was saying. So like at that point like they believe with the entire plan of like Nancy, Dustin destroying like the entire plan of like Nancy and Jonathan and then totally Jonathan totally rushing into like say Dustin's like the scenario that it was written. And that way like the entire plan totally getting destroyed of like Nancy and Jonathan getting destroyed with like and like Jonathan it won't be just Jonathan like Nancy and then the sort of maybe like Jonathan like giving the signal to Nancy that basically what's up to like stay where exactly he is while Jonathan will be like going out to like help Dustin while Nancy Johnson maybe given the signal to like Nancy to like stick to the plan while like Johnson would be while to go to the trying to let's say Dustin would be along the lines on the train but like Johnson taking the club and heading off to like the indoor area in like in front where like the monster would be like yet like I'm like the like uh, Jonathan not being able to stop the monster and like Jonathan getting injured and that got in Nancy as well to like basically run towards like to help them and then like during this time like I was like the and during this time also like the monster falling into like maybe it would be at that point that the monster would be like falling into one of like getting caught in one of the traps and then looking like still I'm also like Nancy Jonathan end up just totally through this struggling with like the horror strength of like the monster like the scenario that I'm doing and while with all and that thing would be happening like from like 11 with 11 like help would be and maybe like while this all this would be happening like Mike and Lucas maybe feeling worried about like Dustin could like by then like it's a long time will be like Dustin like Dustin would have known concern so like I'm like Mike and Lucas totally feeling worried for like Dustin so like I'm thinking at that point like then asking Eleven to use Eleven's powers to like help were like expected is so like at that point like everyone shocked me realizing that they believe for chaos and like gets home. That would be happening at that point. So like I'm looking at that point, like even though Eleven would be extremely scared, like I'm looking like she went only running towards like Will's home is like the scenario that I'm looking at. But like Mike and Luke was like running after Eleven and so like them all entering into like Will's home. And they are like them all struggling to like basically stop like the monster. Eleven using Eleven's like powers and all that. Still, I was thinking in the impression that like it will be perfectly later when that will be falling for like like the scenarios that I'm looking at, like, and like that would be like around like the area of like the area in which like I'm also when like 11 and like the monster will get only for 11 and basically would be capturing and dragging 11 to like the boss, like the scenario that I'm looking at that through that bottle, like all of them like will be like living into like and entering into like the parallel at that point, like the scenario that I'm going to and right after they will be like they are like fully entering into like the parallel world, like basically like it was only then that runner and his team will be making it towards like with soul. It's like the end of scenario that I'm seeing on the printing. Okay, so like definitely the frame result right now for like Steve Paul people like showing up right now and feel like Jonathan's home. Like they think definitely it will be related to like Steve would have like since like Steve had that desperate feeling to like basically to that guilty feeling within him to like trace or to like Nancy Amber and like Steve might have first obviously might have definitely head over to like Nancy's home and there like Steve might have seen like Nancy's mother being like extremely worried for like Nancy as well as like Mike having not returned back home so like definitely even though Nancy and Mike's mother might have been probably in a worried manner thought about like the missing children to like Steve like but like he might have straight away assumed that it's the definitely in that both like Nancy as well as Mike might have definitely not the one missing like Steve would be like a that basically and that's the reason like Nancy's case like she might have straight away assumed that like Nancy might have definitely gone to like Jonathan's home and might be right now having a great time. Could be along the lines like Steve might have straight away assumed and that might be the reason for like Steve straight away like from like Mike's home like from Nancy's home like Steve might have straight away drove to like Jonathan Thomas might have been definitely what might have happened. You know, very much so like Steve straight away like on seeing Nancy at like Jonathan's home like Steve might have not at all been surprised because like he might have totally been straight away assuming and expecting for like Nancy to be exactly there at like Jonathan's home. It's definitely one of the but still there's a like when Steve had gone but like when Steve had seen Nancy at like Jonathan's home like at that point like that extreme like even though there was such a confirmation that extreme rage might have been from within Steve, certainly not the correct expectation. Just like John performed, like at that point, like for Steve, it would be like the current situation from Steve's point of view, Steve is probably thinking that basically, and they already have totally forgotten about Steve and Steve like having a great time with like Johnson once again. It would be along the lines like Steve would be right now being as right now Steve is like really trying to like say his apologies to like Nancy from outside the door of like Johnson. So definitely I'm trying to so like I'm just right now probably there would be like a certain level of race within Steve which Steve would be really trying to hide from Nancy. Certainly my friend and Steve would be like desperately trying to like as much as possible like say his like apologies to like Nancy so that like he could get back Nancy as soon as possible. And certainly my grandmother so like I'm definitely right now with like Nancy trying to like send Steve away like I'm about to bring like Steve like that race playing with Steve like totally coming up to like surface and basically Steve totally like acting once again aggression and aggressive manner and then with Steve pushing open the door like the scenario that I'm going to bring and like straight away Steve on seeing like Johnson, like even though Steve would have totally accepted Johnson, feel like maybe they're like still at Johnson's home, like still like Steve. But the front like Steve trying to like still contain his like rage and then the front like Steve totally quickly as possible once again like trying to like confess to like Nancy and basically trying to like apologize to like Nancy and like telling Nancy that basically he's sorry that basically that we should that they Steve and Nancy should like be together and basically get together like along the lines like Steve telling Nancy it's like the scenario that I'm whispering. And at that point, I'm whispering like either Nancy or Jonathan, like telling Steve to like basically apologize to like Jonathan for like all the hurtful words, unprovoked hurtful words that like Steve had said about like Will, like about like Johnson's family and especially about Will. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. That point definitely I'm whispering once again. Steve is like totally those with like control and I'm whispering like in such an extremely critical situation, like still I'm whispering like once again like another fight to like break out between like Steve and Johnson is like those scenarios that I'm looking for. And while this fight sports and like she would be like desperately trying to like stop both the fight between like Steve and Johnson. That would like make the right then stepping away with Revolution. So definitely Nancy would be totally afraid of like Johnson would be like totally also like losing umbrella and losing like this like sense of like awareness of like the situation that Jonathan is and Nancy and all of them are in with the house itself like fully loaded with traps and everything. So like during that fight it's like the scenario that I'm looking. So yet like I'm looking while all the fight will be happening like and Nancy will be desperately trying to stop them, but like it won't be like not working like so while all this will be happening I'm looking like Dustin would be like totally like walking towards like Will's home to totally for like Dustin to like find the truth and to check out like what exactly like Nancy and Johnson would be like right and doing in that in Johnson's home would be along the lines of like that extreme disturbance that of like a feeling that like Dustin would be having only due to like Dustin definitely having like a massive crush on like Nancy, especially when the pretty much like Dustin. I want to say like if you remember the mention like the monster would be like shown in like in the 3D manner would be like come towards like Will's home. So like right before like the monster will be reaching like even before like the monster will be reaching Will's home like I was running like the monster totally running into Dustin and like Dustin totally seeing the monster and basically running away scared towards like Will's home and at that point Dustin totally quickly entering at the door would be open and Dustin quickly entering into like Will's home. And at that point, like I'm also thinking like Dustin totally being confused, like seeing like the big both Jonathan as well as like Steve with like Nancy, like the scenario that I'm also thinking was like Dustin would be totally expecting like uh, only like Jonathan to be present in like Will's home at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm so like Dustin totally being confused, but like straight away like Dustin remembering that like the monster is like after Dustin and basically Dustin straight away shouting out to them that like the monster is coming and basically at that point I'm delivering like a fight like basically like a teamwork should totally happen with like the monster entering like crashing into like the home of Johnson and different like definitely a teamwork totally a temporary teamwork totally happening between like Steve, Nancy and Johnson. And that's just like the scenario that I'm doing and like without necessarily delays or like I'm different like element like might end up spending element to like to find out where exactly like Dustin has gone to and basically like Eleven totally finding out like the situation and like Eleven totally rushing into like the moment basically like Mike can do this as well kidnap like Eleven and basically them all like entering like the form of Will and like basically them all seeing like shockingly seeing like the monster and basically like them all trying to bring down the monster but like the monster eventually like taking 11 into like the portal into like the battle world. And at that point, like all of them like entering into like the battle world and even Steve as well at that point would be without having a clue at all as to like what's going on. Like Steve as well like still would be like entering along with them into like the battle world. Once like Nancy would be entering into like the battle world straight away, like even before Jonathan ever Steve would be like rushing into like the battle world. So that's what like concern for like Nancy's like such scenario that I'm looking forward to. And in like the parallel world, definitely I'm still thinking about the revolution that like the scenario that I'm thinking is like after like bringing it to the parallel world, definitely like definitely straight away like the fight between like Jonathan as well as like Steve would be like totally continuing like the scenario that I'm looking at. And like the kids like Mike Lucas and Dustin would be like totally getting like irritated with like the constant fight between like and Nancy would be like totally getting like fed up with like the constant fight, which I'm also trying is like to continue on between like Jonathan and Steve all throughout their journey in like the in like the parallel world to find Will. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. And I'm totally putting in like an eventual distant future scenario, like where like I'm looking like once they would be like going through all sorts of like a difficult situation in like the parallel world and like once they would be going deeper and deeper into like the parallel world. Like usually I'm looking for like a situation happening where like Steve would be like totally getting into trouble. Yeah, into trouble with like like at some point like basically like the monster totally attacking Steve and basically trying to like capture and attack Steve. Like so like at that point I'm just like it would be most likely Jonathan that I'm basically trying to like basically fight off like the monster and like to like solely due to like monster like solely due to like Jonathan like being saved in such a tight situation like scenario that I'm moving. So like until that point like neither Steve Jonathan would be like Nancy would have by then, like even before that, like after entering itself, like Nancy will be telling them like say sorry to like Bob Johnson as well as Steve to like say sorry to like each other and basically end the fight. But like I'm them not doing that and then continuing on the fight for like a long time in like through their journey in like the Sam got like another that kind of thing. But like I'm saying, like eventually once like we will be getting into trouble, eventually like it's like the monster like at that point like Johnson saying Steve is like the scenario that I was like. And at that point like I'm talking like Steve as well as the whole fight between like Steve and Johnson ending is like so that situation like the scenario that I was doing. And then like after Johnson in the same Steve like I'm talking like the Steve would be like telling sorry to like Johnson and Johnson would be saying sorry back to like Steve. So that's the scenario that I was doing. And after that, I'm like, once again, like as they would be continuing on their journey to like find well, I'm like eventually like for like another at the another point like it's another situation, troubling situation where like Nancy would be getting into trouble by the monsters like the scenario that I'm doing. And at that point, like Jonathan would be badly injured as well, and Jonathan won't be able to like save Nancy like the scenario that I'm doing. And that way, at that point, I'm like for the Steve totally sacrificing and I was going that to be like an extremely tight situation where like all of them would be in trouble by like the monster. So like at that point I'm like Steve totally but like I'm looking at the monster it would be especially Nancy that like to be in like serious pain of like the monster at that situation like scenario that I'm looking Nancy had also died by the monster. But like at that point I'm looking like doing this Steve that would be like saving Nancy but like at the top of Steve's life like the scenario that I'm looking. And right before Steve dies by the hands of the monster Steve shouting out to Johnson to like that to sorry and maybe to like look up for Nancy like really for Steve like really along the lines like Steve shouting out to Johnson right before Steve will be taking the life out by like the monsters like the scenario that I'm looking for and that sacrificial act of Steve like being the foundation for like Johnson and all of them to be able to like escape from such a tight situation with like the monster is also like invisible possible different scenarios that end up with nothing. So definitely my comprehension definitely like he definitely would be entering in right now without a great delay like he would be like entering into like the parallel along like Johnson and Michael the commission of them and definitely after that is entrance into like the parallel like Steve definitely won't be like coming back out into like the real world from like the parallel. It's like the scenario that I'm basically cutting and not the friend. Okay, so like the name of the question right now is that by the Brazilian consumer the friend of the thing that the monsters to be like the parallel version of like 11 and like the parallel version of foreigners like experiment going around on like the parallel version of 11 turning 11 to like the monster effect might have been what might have happened. So like I'm the present put of the friend like due to like foreigners experiment like I'm the friends monster as well might have not like again like telepathic and telekinetic kind of like powers as well but like maybe like the monster powers are different, but still I'm like the monster if you having that kind of like a telepathic kind of like a powers to like raise maybe raise basic minds is also like about the dynamic and I'm also think to my representation that like in that the dark void whenever like even end of like the dark void like it stays through the bastard like basically uh they are like basically everything like they are like the monster will be able to like instantly know when like that the real world 11 enters into the dark void and basically like this will be the reason for like the monster even back then like trying to communicate with like 11 because like the monster would see 11 there like the dark void and everything like that 11 feels in like the dark void like the monster as well will be able to see so like when 11 had recently searched through the basket had indexed the dark void had really searched for like well and basically had seen Gil in like Captain Bios in like the battle world. Like at that point itself, like the monster might have seen that. And basically like that way it might have been how like the monster like the battle world of worlds might have been able to like make it to like the Captain Bios in like the battle world and fighting Gil. And might have been happened. That's definitely not optimal. But like the president was about reason I'm remembering that that's the even right now as like basically Steve, Nancy and John like basically like are in like Will's room, and basically it was like Jonathan holding the lighter and them all like prepared and ready to like attack while staring at like the yo-yo at like the door, like usually like while they were only expecting like the monster to like come through that door, like usually infiltrating to that room through that door, like and then like definitely for like the monster to like come from like infiltrate through that room from like the side wall, where like near to where he would be standing, which like the scenario that after the door, right? And it will be precisely because of like the monster most likely having its own and like unique power. The monster will be having its own like unique powers using with which like it will be either using like it will be having telepathic powers using with which like the monster will be able to like see read the minds of like even from outside the world to be able to like read exactly like how 11 was able to do that like about the thing that kind of like how 11 was able to like I think like read the words from even while there were like wall barriers like basically in the past like and those things, it's similar kind of like a unique kind of powers using which like the monster right now when standing outside the door will be able to like read the minds of like Nancy Johnson of like Nancy and Jonathan as it's definitely a very impressive. Like the monster would be like totally able to like see that way, read their minds, and gave us like might have found out like the trap that like they have set up for like the monster, and basically so like I'm going the monster figuring this out, and like the monster consciously not opening the doors to like civil room, but like I'm going like the monster only deciding appearing from like the side wall of like his room and that infiltrating into like his room is like the scenario that I'm looking at right now in my book. Okay, so like the claimant reimbursement right now is like Copper and Joyce right now finding out like basically castle fires being destroyed in like the balance world as well as like the Copper finding like NX like NX nearby to like castle fires as well as like that precise train toy of like that belongs to like Sarah. Like I'm looking for my favorite person to believe that like that will that basically like 11 had basically communicated with that in that bathtub. So like my favorite impression is for like that will in like Captain Bios in like the parallel world that like 11 has like established communication and contacts with through like the dark world through the so that's the thing but like while in like the presence of Hopper and Joyce and that Mike Lucas and all of them recently like basically that will that basically had said like hurry. Like since that will had only said the word hurry alone. Like and the like that will that might have that got captured by like the monster. Like that will might have been not the actual word, but like that might have been like the parallel word with it's definitely my go to the parallel word version of it. It's definitely my go to so like that will might have died by like the hands of that monster. Certainly remember the rainbow and soon after like the monster might have laid head as well. Definitely my best friend is so like with like and it being revealed like definitely my personal impression that like the entirety of like the parallel world would be like totally like taken over by these like monster creatures. This is definitely my personal impression. So this might be the reason for like it would just be like just like the area of like the town of Hawkins in like the parallel world alone that indeed are like the entirety of like the world will be in like the entirety of like, the world in like the parallel world, which would be exactly the same size as you know as that of like the real world. And the entirety of like, the parallel world would be like fully being precisely because of the reason is that new maples there because of all the light being destroyed due to like the due to like these monsters especially maples infection. So and then like maybe like there would be suns as well in for like the bad word as well even while it said about like the bad word that stuff like and then maybe there would be like light actual sunlight in like the bad word as well. It's definitely open exercise. So the only just like kind of like a maybe a coincidence that like he said every single time that basically whenever like whenever like even Nancy had entered into like the battle world and even right now with like uh whenever like even when Alex Shepard had entered into like, the battle world and basically while even right now with like is like Joyce as well as like Hopper as well right now entering into the battle world. It might have been only a coincidence that like that it might have all been during night time, especially when with the maybe like there would be definitely sunlight in like the battle world. It's also the clean weather temperature. So yet like I'm also saying that during night time, like the panel will be fully dark, solely due to like all of the light sources in like the panel will being destroyed except for like the sun. It's definitely my impression by these monsters. It's definitely my impression. Also, definitely my impression is for like the toy that is the Sarah had. Sarah loved and Sarah had while she was alive. Like literally that toy being that present in like Castle Bio in like the battle world, which is precisely because of like would also be precisely because of like it being like the parallel world version of Will and not the actual Will. It's definitely my observation that like had set Harry to like to 11 while you try to like, communicate. Like basically that had got gotten caught by like the monster that most likely you see like the parallel world version of Will and like the parallel world that even though the same cast of like the same humans in like the real world would be also existing parallel versions of them and they are exact looking like and their exact age will be certainly like the parallel world still and but even like there would still be a difference in like the parallel world version of the real world people, especially with Rimmers, and that would be like the story, like basically, in like the parallel world version of Will, like the parallel world version of Will would be like loving the story that basically Sarah in like the real world loved so much, would be loved by like the parallel world version of like Will, especially with my cousin Rimmers. So, like there would actually be like the parallel world version of like Sarah, and was it only right now, like the parallel world version of Sarah would be totally alive in like the parent world, especially in the American. But like in her case, like I'm like she won't be most likely the like the real world, like Sarah having some sort of like a serious health issue, like I'm like the parallel world version of Sarah won't be having that health issue. That will be like kind of the difference. And the parallel world version of Sarah won't be loving the very same thought that like the real world Sarah and love. It's definitely not different. So like there will be all that different in like the parallel world version of like the people who's of in like the real world is definitely not famous and definitely I'm also like Hopper finding specifically remember famous for like Hopper actually finding like the parallel world version of like Sarah in like the parallel world during his first to like find Will. It's definitely my memorization and Hopper would be only bringing that parallel world version of Sarah into like saving and bring her into like the real world and doing so like bring someone from like the parallel world into like permanently into like the real world would be totally causing like issues in like the real world as well. Like the scenario that I'm looking for my predict and the framework. Also my documentary impressions that like it will be the same case with like the person like that person with like photo that during like Brian was like doing like experiments on like uh 11 like basically during then like the photo of that person that like Pran has showed of the photo of like I think one of like the team member of like kind of like that basically is that photo of that person that like Pran had showed 11 to basically to make contact and communication through like the dark void into like the parallel world version of him like basically it might have been that by like the real world that person is like would be like one of like, the team member of like one of like in like the parallel world like this parallel world version would be like maybe from Russian clear is definitely my company and that would be like the reason for like him like looking so different in like the dark voice when like 11 had seen him with like parallel version like him looking so different with these studying because of the things definitely one such an interest. Also, definitely, I'm still thinking about the Korean version that, like, basically in the case of like, the monster, I'm still thinking about the Korean version that, like, the monster would be able, definitely might be able to, like, lay eggs on its own. And then there's, like, the necessary condition for, like, the monster to be able to, like, lay eggs. It will be, like, the whole factor of, like, it having to, like, consume food. Like, the monster have to, like, hunt and basically consume food in order for it to be able to, like, lay eggs. And, like, the like as long as it keeps on hunting and consuming food, like it will be keeping on laying more and more eggs. It's certainly a good remember. And this might also be like a major factor on top of like the monster, this possibly being like extremely tough, like and having also the unique powers. Like on top of that, like the facts and the other so this might consider everything that like one of the main factor would be like so these monsters would be like laying eggs every time this monster uh, consumes food. This also certainly like a very emergent. That way, like these monsters might have multiplied in like the parallel worlds in that really quick pace and rate that we might very impression. So that as well might have been like a major factor in like the monster probably having like taken over like the entirety of like the battle world or like almost like the entirety of the battle world. and hence like the parallel world being like so extremely unclean and like extremely dark as well without any lights. It's definitely one of the framework, right? So like also the thing is they are different right now with like Johnson, like Nancy, as well as the like searching all around like they are built Johnson phone looking for like the monster and the different right now maybe for like the monster to like appear create a portal on the floor and appear out of like the floor. It's also like a possibility there and or like maybe appear out of like this a portal that will be created by the monster in like the ceiling, either from like the ceiling or from like the floor is where like I'm also putting like for like the monster like appear next into like Johnson form is like scenario that I'm looking. So like the player with the impression right now with like right now solely due to like still like basically like the monster right now totally getting caught into the bear trap as well as catching fire. Still protect like the flavors like this right now. Nancy like Johnson as well as Steve right now would be witnessing how like even their traps not being enough to like basically destroy or take the life of like the monsters like the scenarios are emerging. But definitely I'm also like even with like the monster right now getting caught in like the bear trap as well as catching fire. Still I'm also the monster to be let's see tough and to definitely survive. Number two rank right now is like the monster to like create like a portal right now, most likely on the floor. This is how where like I'm referring like the monster will be creating like a portal and the monster will be like through that portal will be straight away falling into like the parallel world straight away. It's like from like the real world. It's like the scenario that way like the monster escaping like the fire and everything like surviving the fire and everything and the trap and everything is like the scenario that I'm referring right now in the real world. And at that point, I was like the scenario to be like even though like Johnson and Nancy would be like desperately wanting to like go through chase after the monster and go through the Boston portal and ensure that like they take the life of like the monster, but like that would not be possible for them because of like the monster catching fire like like that whole area totally catching fire as well. Like the scenario that way like that fire totally preventing like Jonathan and from being able to like pull that forward. Definitely one of the machine and Jonathan and Nancy are really trying to like quickly put out the fire, but like I'm going by the time they will be putting out the fire, like the portal would have totally closed. It's like preventive scenario that I'm about to bring another very impression. Okay, so like the clean out of very impression right now with like Jonathan and Nancy finally succeeding in like basically having like the monster catch fire, like but still but like Johnson's decision right now to like prioritize the protection of like the home more than like ensuring the death of like the monster. Like I'm like with like Johnson right now using like the fire extinguisher right now. That definitely like Johnson would be totally on the our confidence thing that basically protect the monster having fought fire like basically and having fought fire and stayed in such a manner for some time like basically Johnson might have or confidently thought that basically now like the even if Johnson uses the fire extinguisher and prevents like the entire house from getting burned like still lacks down and even if like the flame that way flame from the motor as well like basically like gets extinguished in such a manner still like from like so to an injury like in the motor might die will be like the or confidence of Johnson but like I'm looking right now with like Johnson using the fire extinguisher and like the area filled with like smoke and something like once like the smoke would be clearing there will be absolutely no trace of like the motor and that will be especially like the monster would have like while the monster will be surrounded with like the smoke and like the monster would have got that way due to the fire extinguishing with the monster getting rid of like the fire like the monster straight away like creating like a portal and waited in within that smoke like the monster would have straight away created like a monster portal and basically would have totally straight away escaped into like a battle world of like the scenario that about the friend. So like when like smoke clears like about the like Nancy Jonathan as well as Steve seeing absolutely no trace at all of like the monster there like the scenario that I'm about to Oh, okay, the name of the understand right now with like offer as well as Joe's like raising the nose and ending up in like French home in like battle right now. But they are referring right now itself like them seeing like the monster from within like this home in like the parallel world of like the scenario that I'm referring. But like I'm looking like even though and but like offer straight away using stuff and I'm trying to take down like the monster, but still I'm looking like the monster still breaking maybe like breaking walls of like the window of like the of like will zoom and basically escaping from like will zoom and like the tablet it's like the scenario that I was right but they offer I'm the different like bro like the Monster right now is already injured from like the burn. Still number six like Hopper won't be able to like take out like the monster and like the monster will managing to like succeed to like get away. It's like the scenario set up with the three and the three. Okay, so like the the three question right now is that since like during like Hopper like we have conversations with like before heading off to like the battle point like Hopper had the leads back then like referred to 11 as like an experiment, like I'm looking at that might have been only sitting in my experiment so that like that might have been Hopper to like strategy to like basically do that kind of like trick runner into thinking that basically Hopper doesn't care about 11 and Hopper doesn't even treat 11 as like a human. It's definitely one of the embarrassing. So that like to totally give that fake false feeling to like runner as if like Hopper doesn't care about like 11 at all. The only person Hopper cares about is like basically saving like Ben as well as like Mike Lucas and of thing like is like the only ones that Hopper cares about. Like it gives us the false impression or like a feeling to run up to like quick run up to like eventually in like the future to betray Hopper would be like betray the run up would be that Hopper plans betray but like I'm looking right now what like Hopper would be on the planning would be to like save win and Hopper might have totally naively trusted like run up to like like not like catch up abduct the boy picked up need number three embrace. So like Hopper might have totally uh, naively assumed that like Brenner would be leaving like Mike Nicholson, Dustin Ello, and Anthony Jonathan Ello might have been like maybe along the name kind of way in which like or from some manner like Hopper might have totally thought. In exchange for like Hopper not revealing anything about like Brenner's involvement in like anything and everything. It's definitely Hopper might have totally expected. So like that might be the sole reason for like Brenner and his team showing up exactly to like Hopkins medicine. Like Hopper revealing that exact location to like runner with the exactly. So due to lack of like all concepts that runner might only take away 11 alone. And also due to lack of confidence that like the reason for like runner like desperately being after like to capture like 11 would be only to like capture 11 and want to like take the life of like 11. There will be also that circumstance depend like Hopper due to like 11 having all these superpowers like basically like Hopper might have seen that like basically that runner might definitely not take the life of might not probably in letting not taking the life of 11 definitely also maybe to remember. So like definitely right now like the scenario that I'm considering is for like with like runner right now crossing of it for like I'm like runner and his team like basically finding like the room where 11 and Mike Lucas and Dustin Lee. And at that point, like I'm like 11 looking at and like attacking the whole fight between like runner and his like army was like 11 happening. But like I'm even though 11 I'm using a superpower like only making a lot of scores and destruction and taking out like a lot of like the of like the team of like runners like army, but still I'm working on like it would be like I'm working on like a runner would be like slightly like approaching in like a calculative manner, but like I'm working on like runner according to might have already but this strategies to like basically for like one of the like men to like stealthily like take might one of like the three kids like like above stage so that like to stop 11. So like I'm working that way like while 11 will be focusing on attacking like the whole army that will be charged towards like 11 like that will be the distraction while like a like a bunch of like a while like a like few men like basically like or like one member of like 11 of like foreigners team like is constantly showing up and is constantly quickly that taking my exactly my cap of stage like the scenario that I'm different. So like at that point like at that point like 11 those are really shocked by seeing like the situation is like my duty and like and not threatening 11 to like take to up my or like take my like if like 11 doesn't listen to like the runner like the scenario that I'm looking that way like 11 totally like totally deciding to like stop fighting and basically that way that 11 getting taken away by Pranav teams and by a section of Pranav's team like transporting 11 away and soon after like I was thinking like another section of Pranav's team would be like capturing and taking possibly taking away like Mike Lucas and Upton and like would be taking the and basically just would be bringing all of them to like Pranav and the operates like the scenario that I'm bringing and from there like I'm certainly also saying definitely why the forced interrogation could happen like also like a scenario that I was when you like Sanar would be also wanting to like know if like Mike Lucas and Dustin have said have like revealed the truth about like Eleven to like anybody else like what scenario that I was doing. So like Rena's plan will be like interrogate Mike Lucas and Dustin and will be like that like and maybe also then to take 11 like as well. It's also like about the development because my as for like what foreigner will be planning the remember the everything. But like I'm also something like after the but like I'm also thinking maybe like foreigner will be planning to like postpone like the interrogation for like the next day or like I'm also like foreigner doing like just like an initial interrogation. But like I'm also thinking foreigner would be wanting to do not interrogation of like my future and so like but like I'm also like in the middle of the night like I'm like uh, my closest friend stuff like among my closest friends like I'm between like one of them like most likely might like simply having to like some sort of like weapon or like something using it which like might would be recurring himself and basically like that way like might be like somehow manage to like it might free like the and let them somehow manages like escape that interrogation room. And basically, while them being chased after by Pranasman, and I'm looking like the security will be like left during that time. Sort of like all the remaining forces would have left that Pranas lab for that time being like the during the night is like the scenario that I'm looking for like at that point like Mike Lucas and Dustin like basically run for Pranas and the laboratory that they will be like chased after by Pranasman and at that point like them like making it towards like they're running into like exactly 11th row and basically them unlocking 11 and basically 11 using 11 like superpowers and basically them all like rushing towards like and at that point like Mike asking like 11 up to like where like the gate is and then the different like or like I'm talking they will be having that form system and so like or like most likely I'm talking like it will be 11 that will be like leading them to like the room where like the gate is and basically that through like the gate within like and was the level free like 11 and Mike will be understanding through the main gate like Karanathan about it and entering like the ParallelWorld as well. Like the scenario that about the thing I'm looking at right now. So it's like definitely about the impression right now with like right now when using the paper power to like stop like a few of like parental posts and basically 11 like only falling on courses and it's like directly another thing that big superpowers of 11 like basically 11 body right now would be like not strong enough to be able to like handle like the usage of all that superpowers of 11 membership and the different like 11 would need to like grow a lot older and they would be for like 11 body to like so strong enough to that basically be able to like handle all these like superpowers of 11 but definitely might also remember it. So because of this reason, like you spend 11 years using like the superpower, like whenever like with like 11 repeatedly getting the nose blade, like if you put that in sort of using that superpower, like at like the young age of like 11, that would be like slowly taking the store on like 11's like health, definitely going to the impression. So right now, my temperature for like the 11 right now falling unconscious and my feeling that like totally unlike the time where like 11 had been trained of like to like using a paper pouch or like I'm looking this time like I'm looking my could be right and like I'm looking like this time it being totally different for 11 that I'm looking like 11 for maybe like for like a few days not being able to like use the power superpower at all. It's like also like about this that I'm suffering. Maybe for like a few days or like maybe for a while like 11 not at all being able to like use any of the superpowers at all. It's like the scenario that I'm looking is like for like that actual proper feeling of like 11's body was actually need to happen and like even more iteration for that healing would be like maybe required, like maybe that would be like the scenario that I'm considering. Until like 11 would be finally able to like get back her power, which definitely and should be able to like once again use her power, it's definitely not considering direction. So like 11, I'm looking like 11 frequently using 11 to like superpower, frequently having user use 11 like superpowers and like in a extremely repeated manner, like might have caused just to like happen. It's also like the scenario that I'm going to go get. So like it should be like right now the situation is like 11. So definitely my opinion.